Hey, everybody. It is MIHOA live time. We hope you like that intro music. That's something new that we're trying. I know our two guests were listening to it, dancing away. So welcome back to another episode of Missouri Ice Hockey Officials Association Live. I'm Andy Hudson, Development Education Coordinator. I haven't pulled my stripes on in a couple of months, so I figured I'd pull them on today. And I've got two guests today, actually, Andy Bethmann and Johnathan Morrison. Are you guys there? Turn on your videos, please.
Good to be back, Huddy.
There we go. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Very well, Huddy.
All right. Wonderful. So I put this on just for the two of you guys because it's been sitting in my basement for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. And I had to shake the spiders out of it. But what do you think?
How does it smell?
Yeah.
Does it still
fit? Great.
Does it fit?
It fits. I've actually done very well with my weight over the past couple of months.
You'll be by example, Huddy.
Exactly. So very excited today. It's another week. We've got a guy that we're squeezing him between Jay Scherers and Brian Murphy. No pressure. We've got Johnathan.
No pressure.
Exactly. And Andy Bethmann has volunteered to be the host for this episode. So no pressure to you, Beth.
No problem.
Turning the hosting duties over to you. And when you see me come back on, we'll talk to you in a little bit. Okay. Enjoy, fellas. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Johnathan, I'm going to start off here. I'm just going to rattle off some career achievements. I'm going to try and do it in one breath, but it's quite long. Okay. So we have 2004 Calder Cup finalist linesman. We have 2012, 2013 IIHF Men's World Championships. We have 2011 Men's World Championships under 20. We have 21 seasons in the USHL as a referee and linesman. Currently a Big Ten linesman, American League linesman, the USA Hockey Development Program of Transportation and Logistics, and as of 2018, the referee-in-chief of the Paralympics. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did good.
Not bad. And I know I left some things out, but I want you to kind of fill in the gaps. So, Johnathan, affectionately known as Motown. We have
two words, no hyphen. The legal spelling is two words, no hyphen. M-O space town.
Important. Now, you are kind of an anomaly in the fact that you grew up in a small town, and some would say a non-hockey state. Okay, so you grew up in Mason City, Iowa, small town. Now, tons of important hockey played in that state. But can you tell people how you kind of got involved in officiating and how you got involved in USA Hockey and where you started and kind of started to trickle your way up?
Okay, so yes, I grew up in Mason City, Iowa, which is currently my hometown. My wife and I moved back here. I was born in Minneapolis, and then my parents moved down here. My parents were originally from Austin, Minnesota, which is just 50 miles north across the Minnesota-Iowa border. And yeah, not a huge hockey town. But we got junior A hockey in 1983 with the USHL with the North Iowa Huskies. And that's what kind of made Mason City or North Iowa a hockey town. My dad never played organized hockey per se. He played neighborhood hockey up on the frozen lakes in Minnesota. And so, funny story, my dad was a high school and collegiate wrestler. And when they moved to Mason City, my dad wanted to get into coaching wrestling. And so he saw something, just a quick little advertisement to be a wrestling coach. He went to the organizational meeting to be a wrestling coach. He went on the wrong day, and it was actually to be a hockey coach, and he was too embarrassed to leave, and he left with a Bantam team, and that's how my family got started in hockey. True story. So I grew up playing hockey as a kid, and my dad officiated just because they needed officials, and his brother, my uncle John, was an official and was a pretty good official. He did the World Juniors as well. And so when I was old enough, I threw on the jersey and grabbed a whistle. And that's how I got into officiating on the grassroots side.
Oh my gosh. How old were you then?
You know, I think I started calling games somewhere between the ages of 10 and 12. You know, if you grow up in a small town and there's not a lot of people and you're skating squirts, they're going to let you call a squirt game if you're available.
Yeah. Now, is there still one rink in Mason City?
Yeah, so our original barn, we closed the barn this year, which was out at the fairgrounds, which we shared with the horse people. And now actually I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna plant the flag right now. North Iowa has the best tier 2, tier 3 barn in the country. I can walk to it from our house. It's less than a mile away. It's unbelievable. I took Keith Cavall there from the North American Hockey League this year to witness a game, and he was blown away. It's amazing, and it's a part of our new downtown district. It's gorgeous.
You know, I thought you were going to go the route of saying they have the best tier 2, tier 3 fans of all time, because I'm a witness of some ruckus Mason City fans, North Iowa Outlaw games and whatnot, but I didn't even know about that rink going up there.
Yeah, it's great. And the thing about North Iowa is I think no matter what level you put in here, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you're going to get the same core. We'll call it 1,100, 1,200 fans. You know, the tier 3 model is perfect for North Iowa. That's what the fans love. And if anyone changed it, it would be a mistake.
Okay. So, Johnathan, I've known you for probably 15 years. I would say that the majority of the people that know your name across USA Hockey would put that together with being a part of the development program. Okay. Now, you are the logistics coordinator in transportation. I know what that means, but before you explain what that means in your current role, I want you to kind of talk about when you got into the program and what it's kind of adapted to over the years. I mean, I know what it's looked like over a 15-year period, but I couldn't tell you what it looked like when it started and you know, how successful it's been.
Well, it started in 98, 99. That's when, you know, our refereeing chief for the USHL used to be Scott Zingerman. And when USA Hockey got involved and Scott Brand took over, he was employed by USA Hockey and not by the USHL. And that's when the officiating development program started. You know, prior to that, the USHL kind of had its own thing. We had guys in apartments just like we do now, but USA Hockey wasn't part of it. So 98, 99 is when the ODP technically started. My roommate that year was Brian Pochmara. We lived in Des Moines. I think our training camp had 8 or 9 guys at it. That was it. We were up in Spooner for the better part of a week, a small, tight-knit group, and obviously it's gotten much bigger over the years.
Gosh. Now, so like I said, your role is currently with transportation and logistics. Talk about, you know, how stressful that can be with hundreds of officials moving across the country at any given time, and you know what exactly that looks like for you.
So it goes in stages throughout the year. So my job entails helping Scott Zelkin make sure that we run a very good camp, that we put all the pieces together for our full-time camp, for our prospects camp, that we properly educate our officials and we prepare them for the upcoming season. Additionally, it's my job. I oversee the housing for the USHL side of our ODP officials. Once the season kicks off, I oversee pretty much all of our hotels that we book for our officials while they're traveling. Additional, their continued education and their mileage. So it's crazy in the summertime. July is nuts. It's like get ready for full-time training camp. We get that taken care of right before the season kicks off, and then we kick the season off. Okay, so every year I get this brand new batch of officials who haven't gone through this process before. We have to teach them the way we do things, right? Because in my job, I'll book anywhere from 700 to 1,000 hotels a year over the course of, we'll call it 8 months. And we have processes and procedures in place to do that efficiently and cost effectively. So getting them all in line is difficult at the beginning of the season. Things kind of go on cruise control once we get into about January, February. However, this thing, when the weather is bad, I hate this thing when the weather is bad because it goes off. And my wife's in the background going, I hate that phone when the weather's bad too, because I'm the guy that they call when they can't get to their game or they leave the rink and there's 2 feet of snow. And, you know, I'm the guy that's got to get them a hotel and make sure that they're safe. So my job goes in a lot of stages. Obviously, you know, come June, it's nice. It's laid back. There's no hotels to book. We're really haven't gone crazy in planning yet. But my job's a roller coaster.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I think I'm going to petition USA Hockey to change your title to just Swiss Army knife, because I think that everyone who knows you knows that's kind of the truth.
I mean, I've booked hotel rooms in using the computer of Tom Serratori's computer at Bemidji State. He was giving us a tour of the building years ago when they got their new building. My phone went off. I couldn't get good enough signal. And he gave me his laptop and I booked a hotel for a guy. It happens whenever.
Huddy, welcome back.
Hey, guys. Well, so far you're doing an above average job, Beth? And our guest is doing a much better job than that even. So you're doing well. We got a couple people tuning in, including one, Jay Murph, who says he's from Chattanooga. I have a feeling he's pulling our leg because he says, "Hey, Beth, congrats on the kiddo." And then it's Chattanooga. So I think we might have somebody pulling our leg there. What do you think, Beth?
That sounds like Joseph Murphy if I've ever heard him.
Yeah. That's Murphy. But we do have some people tuning in. So if you are tuning in, you'd like a question for Motown, go ahead and type it in there. We'll call it out. Again, this is Andy Hudson, and we got Andy Bethmann here, our super duper guest host. And then our special guest is Johnathan Morrison. So, all right, back to you, Andy. Keep going.
Thank you, Huddy. So Motown, now I want to talk a little bit about you personally as official, because your list is so long. I mean, it took me about 10 minutes to write it down. Okay. And I kind of knew it a little bit, and I'm not pumping your tires. I'm being genuine when I say this, but you know, we've talked, I don't even know if I mentioned the 4-time Paralympic referee, and I want to keep that to the side because that's my next question. That's separate. That's near and dear to my heart. We'll get there in a little bit. Okay. But, you know, we talked about the Calder Cups. We talked about the USHL. We talked about the World Championships and all that stuff. Can you summarize it into almost like a top 3? I mean, I know it's hard, but can you think of those kind of moments that if somebody said, "Hey, tell me a story," where you'd go with that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I've been fortunate. You know, it's been a long career. I've been given a lot of opportunities, and you know, I've been in a situation where I've been able to grasp those opportunities and kind of run with the ball. You know, a couple things that stick out, you know, especially on the international side, is that in 2012 at the World Championships, I was in Stockholm. That tournament a lot of times get split between 2 cities. And the semifinals and the finals were actually in Helsinki. So my crew had to fly from Stockholm to Helsinki. And so we go to the airport. They're like, "Okay, you guys are going to be on a charter flight from Stockholm to Helsinki." Cool. I've never taken a charter flight. This would be pretty cool. So we get there, you know, typical IIHF style, 2 hours before the flight. We're just sitting there, and all of a sudden we get on the plane, and there's like 10 of us, you know, 2 crews and a couple supervisors. And we're like, wow, is this, you know, entire plane for us? And on walks Team Russia. And we are talking Ovi, Malkin, everybody. I mean, they won gold that year. They eventually, like 4 days later, win gold. They're just on there. Like, here comes Ovechkin. Like, you know, and he's just got his Beats headphones on. He's playing his game, and Malkin sits down the aisle from me. And I'm just, this is crazy. So we land in Helsinki, touchdown, wheel right off the tarmac. Don't go through security, nothing. Wheel up to this big, huge truck, and then 2 buses to take us. And 2 guys hop off, and they start unloading the plane. And all the bags are coming down the chute, right? And everyone's looking around. It's like, well, what do we do? Well, I guess we unload the plane, right? And so here's guys like Ovechkin and Malkin just like grabbing their own bags and throwing them in this truck. Well, then every once in a while, a non-player bag would come down and be this black referee bag. And then you'd see Ovi look up and he'd go, referee bag? Yeah, he'd set that to the side. And this went on, and you're just going, oh my gosh, like Alexander Ovechkin is unloading a plane of my gear right now. Like, how is this actually happening? You know, I had them in the semifinals, and then they won gold. I backed up the gold medal game, and it was crazy. Those guys are amazing athletes. That was a great memory. You know, the World Juniors in 2011, that was a tournament that I told myself going into it, if you've ever got a chance to work a gold medal, this is it. And you have to be ready for it. You're on your home soil. One of the supervisors was Kevin Minch from the Western League. I had skated for Kevin in the Western League. I had been supervised by him in the ODP. I knew Kevin. Kevin and I really liked each other. He liked the way I skated. And I said, okay, this is the tournament that I've got to take advantage of. When the U.S. didn't go on, I think they lost in the quarters that year. I was like, okay, this is the shot. Well, that's the year that Canada was up 3-0 against Russia going into the third, right? And Russia had like barely qualified to make the quarters. overtime games, all these things that Russia just hanging on. And we're walking out on the ice for the third period. And the kid who was in charge of our door goes to myself and Felix Winnikins goes, you guys better strap on your helmets. It's going to get ugly out there. It's 3-0. Canada's going to run away. This isn't over yet, right? We drop the puck, Russia scores. Play a couple minutes, Russia scores again. 5 minutes in, we're tied 3-3. Russia ends up winning that game 5-3. Now we're right across the border. You could have heard a pin drop. And to be part of that game, and I got to work with Keith Cabal, who's like been one of my closest friends in this sport, was just absolutely amazing to be part of that game and witness that. And then, on the process that myself and Brett DeRozier's went through for my first Frozen Four, every game we had was a nail biter. Every one of them, single overtime, double overtime, 1-goal games. And we just, nailed them and set ourselves up for success later on. And that entire process was awesome to go through that with him because he was a younger guy at the time. And he's going to be around in college hockey forever.
I know. Yes. Very good. I'm fortunate to skate with them too. Favorite coach of all time? Hot seat.
Man, that's tough. Favorite coach of all time. Let's see. I always enjoy being around Kevin Hartzell. Kevin, a smart guy, fair guy. I can't shake Bob Motzko at the University of Minnesota to save my life. He coached in North Iowa back in the 80s when they won their national championship when he was in his 20s. And now he's at University of Minnesota. So I see him all the time. I'm not going to call him my favorite coach, but he's the guy I see all the time. And then obviously, man, any USHLer that, was there during the Cooper years. John Cooper, beyond the fact of being an amazing coach, is an unbelievable human being that you just want to sit down with. And he's so much fun to be around. He's so smart and his stories are great. And he can separate the game from life and talk to you about life. You can screw him 6 ways to Sunday in a game and see him a couple days later and be like, hey, Jonathan, how you doing? Wonderful human.
That's always the one thing that I just try to tell young coaches that I'll even see around like high school leagues or even ACHA team, stuff like that, where I go, we just want you to be able to separate yourself from the game and show that human element side sometimes. Even if things were hairy, even if they were great for you, just can you be different around the ring, versus itself. It's funny that you say that. Okay, so now I want to get to what's nearest and dearest to my heart and what's really kind of connected us more than we already were over the last 4 or 5 years. But 4 or 5 years, oh gosh, what was it? I think 2016, I get a phone call from Johnathan Morrison. Hey, I'm doing a sled hockey camp. I'm instructing. I'd like you to come along with me. We go out to Buffalo. We do USA Hockey. It was the first sled hockey camp, wasn't it?
Well, it was the first time the officiating really got folded into the development camp for the players because we had our own separate camp, whereas like national camp used to just officiate the games. Those officials participating in national camp, this was the first time that we actually had a separate officiating side of it.
Yes, and so it's been great. I know you've been so excited about it to see USA Hockey get involved and really bring that officiating piece to a game that's growing and a game that's near and dear to our hearts. And last summer, we went to Ostrava, Czech Republic. You as referee in chief, kind of retiring after four times as a referee in the Paralympics. And talk a little bit about what it's like and how you got involved in being the referee in chief of that sport.
I mean, even going back to 2005, prior to 2006, I had never seen the sport played. I didn't have the notoriety that it did. And I got involved in it at the right time when USA Hockey said, listen, we need to bring our developing officials into this and see what we can make of it, right? Like we want our officials to be the standard at this sport. And so I was just right time, right place and just ran with it, right? And as I got involved, I fell in love with the sport. I fell in love with the people, the athletes. I mean, you want to talk about human beings, the things that these people go through and have gone through. It's like, wow, put your life in perspective, Jonathan, right? Like you were born with 2 legs. You didn't have spina bifida. You didn't get hit by a train. Like all these things that these individuals have experienced and went, hey, I'm still going to be a world-class athlete. And as I fell in love with the sport and as I continued with it, you know, my mentors were guys like, you know, Scott Brinkman from Buffalo, who was our referee in chief back then. And then it became Scott McDonald, who taught me the game. This was a guy from Ottawa. And these were really good friends of mine. And I just gravitated towards them. And, you know, after Sochi, I thought I was done. I stepped off the ice in Sochi and I was like, okay, you know, it's been a good career. And they asked me if I wanted to come back. And I said, okay. I said, I'll come back. I said, but I want you to know, I'm not going to come back to just like get you guys through a couple world championships and then not go to Korea. I said, if I'm going to come back, I'm shooting for Korea. They said, oh, you know, okay, that's fine. You know, we need someone to, you know, carry the mail. And I said, and also, you know, I know you've talked about, I said this to my boss at the time, Scott McDonald, I said, you know, I know you've talked about doing a couple Paralympics as the referee in chief and then being done after that. I'd really like to talk to you guys about taking over or being a part of that supervisory process once you're done. So I let people know back then exactly what I wanted to do. Those were goals of mine, and you're not going to accomplish your goals until you tell somebody. And so I just set myself up to have those opportunities. And it's definitely different being outside the glass than it is inside the glass. Gosh.
So, I mean, I tell people, you know, that was probably a top one experience for me. Just quickly, let me get this in. Johnathan, talk about the difference of kind of you're dealing with young officials on the ODP side and instructing them, and then differences, and this is kind of something we talked to our scheduler about, is dealing with men and a staff that you brought in of professional referees in their own countries, and the differences in that.
So our staff on the IPC side, or the World Paralympic Ice Hockey side, is comprised of younger guys that we're bringing into the fold, and then those senior officials. So I can, you know, bring up Uwe Luki from Norway, right? Uwe was at Torino when I was there, when both of us were getting in. Then his IIHF career took off, and he wasn't around for, you know, 2010, 2014. And then we came back involved, you know, for 2018. He's still part of our staff. So Uwe has been along for a long time, and he and I have had a lot of very personal experiences with each other. You know, so I have to be able to separate that a little bit while still working with these young officials, right? That I want to mold into those guys who, you know, are going to take my place and Uwe's place. And, you know, a guy like Kevin Webinger out of Canada just loves para ice hockey. And he's amazing. I hired him for the ODP years ago, and I've watched Kevin develop as an amazing official. Okay. Well, Kevin's getting a little bit older. He's going to have, he's in amazing shape, but, you know, he wants hockey life 2.0 at some point. It's like, okay, how are we going to backfill him? So that's what I have to do, is figure out how to continue to build the staff that we have, but build up underneath and constantly just be filling in this way.
Yeah, and how important it is for those guys to be also doing their part locally to build those officials up as well.
Yeah, because if the officiating doesn't keep up with the sport will get drugged down by the officiating. And, you know, now I have to think of that more on a worldwide scale than just a local scale outside of St. Louis and Buffalo and Minneapolis and, you know, the entire USA hockey.
Okay. Andy Hudson.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job and fantastic. It is Joe Murphy, by the way. He's in Chattanooga.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, but he says, Motown, he says, I never got to say thanks for the whooping at Sault Ste. Marie at regionals.
Oh.
So,
I'm glad you did. Owen Thompson, I think, had written the level 4 test that year. We administered the level 4 test, and the guys did absolutely horrible on it. And Owen Thompson took it very personal, and we gave him an ice session just to let out all his frustration, and he did.
Oh, good. Owen Thompson, referee in chief from Massachusetts for a couple of years, is that right? Okay. Hopefully you guys aren't having the audio problems I am, but there's a little funky. Are you guys okay on the audio right now?
Good.
Okay.
Doing okay.
Hey, Beth, do you mind if I just do a quick rapid fire round for Johnathan?
Yeah, let it rip, and I kind of have just one more question at the end.
Of course. So you're not expecting this, Motown, but we sometimes do rapid fire questions, and we thought we'd do an Iowa themed one. Are you ready?
Oh boy. Oh no. All right.
Okay. All right, here we go. What percentage of corn in the U.S. does Iowa produce?
The percentage of corn that Iowa produces in the U.S., I am going to go with 18%.
You're very close. 20% is the answer, but good job. Okay. It plus or minus 2. So you win that one. Hawkeyes or Cyclones?
My wife and I both went to Iowa State. My neighbor, who I can see out the window, is a huge Iowa fan, and our driveway is a Y. And so we have this sign that says Iowa fans and Iowa State, like divided household, but it's divided driveway. We're Cyclone fans in this house.
Cyclones. Okay, great. Favorite celebrity from Iowa?
Favorite celebrity from Iowa?
Are there any?
Man, there's not a tough. Meredith Wilson. Meredith Wilson wrote the Music Man musical. That bridge is actually about 100 yards this way from my house. I'm going with Meredith Wilson.
Okay, how about favorite pro athlete who was born in Iowa?
We have some.
No,
Well, there's one that has a good connection to St. Louis.
Kurt Warner.
Yeah, is he your favorite?
Well, Kurt Warner actually sacked my groceries the year that I was living in Des Moines with Brian Pochmara because he was playing for the Iowa Barnstormers. I don't know if he was born here, but he played for the Iowa Barnstormers, and he was moonlighting at Hy-Vee Grocery on about 35th and EP True. And I remember seeing him there, and he was loading up my groceries into the cart. So I'm going to go with Kurt Warner. That's all I got.
Okay, good. All right, 2 more quick questions. Which president was born in West Branch, Iowa?
Come on, Herbert Hoover.
Hey, all right, good. All right, last one, and I'm going to ask Andy first, and then you.
Oh God.
Andy,
Okay.
what four cities make up the Quad Cities?
Oh, okay. Hold on. I think I can do this. Davenport, Moline. Davenport, Moline. Oh God.
Need to phone a friend?
Yeah, I haven't been there in a long time. Davenport, Moline. Man, I don't. Help me out.
Go ahead.
Rock Island's the tough one.
Rock Island and.
It's not Bettendorf. Bettendorf's north.
There you go. You got
Is it Bettendorf?
Davenport, Bettendorf, Rock Island, and Moline.
Oh
Boom.
my gosh.
All right. Good job. All right, Andy, back to you for one last question. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, honey.
Yeah.
All right, Jonathan. I kind of want to, and I know people have been fortunate over a long period of time to listen to rants and raves and overall advice, but give me some advice where you see the 2020 official and I like how you mentioned earlier about you have to state goals if you're going to achieve goals, but what's your advice for that 14-year-old in Mason City or in Boston or in St. Louis and achieving those goals, and kind of 3 things to focus on?
Number one that you've got to focus on is repetition. My favorite book, and I'm reading it for the 3rd time right now, is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. It's the story of success. And in there, one of my favorite chapters talks about the 10,000 hours. And prior to 1964, the Beatles played these small clubs all throughout Germany. And instead of just going and playing these 2-hour sets, they were the club band. And they would play for 8 to 10 hours straight, 5 to 7 days a week for months at a time. And the Beatles, literally, by the time it was 1964 and they got released to the world, they had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of playing together, playing live. And it was all that repetition that made them the band that they are. And there's countless stories about this, people who devote themselves to a skill. It's the rule of 10,000 hours. And what I see right now is these officials, they want it now. They want it now, right? Oh, I want to be in the USHL. I want to be in the NCAA. I want to be in the American Hockey League. And it's like, okay, well, have you put in the time? Have you mastered the level that you're currently in before you go up to the next one? We always talk about that. You have to master the level you're in before you go beyond it. And I see people just wanting everything now. And I get so frustrated. And I know so does Dan Monticelli. I mean, Mono gets so mad. These guys, they don't want to work that tier 3 or that ACHA game coming back from that road trip or something like that. It's like, you have to take advantage of those games to work on some sort of skill to get better, because you need that repetition. And people don't want to do that repetition now. The repetition sucks, but the repetition is what sets you up for success.
Yeah, I mean, that's so great, because I mean, we all know, I mean, we've done enough USHL games combined. I think we're at 35 years. Okay. I did a little quick math, but those are the easy games. What kids don't understand, or even older officials don't understand, is that working those games that maybe you don't want to do or aren't your favorite is where you're going to learn the most, you know? Okay. Let's just lastly, if you could pick one attribute for an official, whether it be skating, whether it be rule book knowledge, whether it be where you see the trend going now, okay, for the 2020 official, if they had one thing to work on this season, what would it be?
I'd have to say awareness. I've been lucky in that I have skated throughout my career with guys who are now, you know, amazing NHL officials. You know, I skated with Wes in 2004. Pakmara was my roommate that year in 98, 99. Brian Pakmara saw everything on the ice and chose to call what he thought was a penalty. I worked with Brian Mock, summer hockey, years and years ago, before he got hired to the National Hockey League. And that guy saw and could sniff out anything on the ice. It's like, if you have amazing awareness, you can be a heck of an official. And I think those guys who have that set themselves above everybody else.
I think it's so well said. Andy Hudson, you know, that's all I got. You got anything to add?
No, I think that's a great point, John, that awareness, and it's really hard to learn, but the more games you work, the better, the easier it comes. So kind of piggybacks on what you said earlier, don't you think?
I carried my awareness into bartending. True story. I would bartend in the summer to basically make enough money to referee, right? So I would bartend all summer. And I knew a fight was going to happen 5 minutes before the two guys who were going to fight knew it was going to happen, right? You could just see it coming. And that came from officiating. And I just remember people like, how did you know that was going to happen? I was like, how did you not know that was going to happen? That guy's been hitting on that guy's girlfriend for the last 2 hours. And that guy's drunk right now. And he's been looking at him the entire time. How did you not see this coming?
You're talking about Andy Bethmann.
Hey, whoa, hey.
Oh, I'm joking. All right, guys, this has been fantastic. Now, I'm not going to big time you now, but next week, our guest only has 9 Stanley Cup Finals in his name, and he's only worked over 2,000 NHL games and 300 playoff games. Only. Brian Murphy, who recently retired from the NHL just last season. Have you guys ever sat down and had a beer with Murph?
I've sat in a lot of meetings with him. I haven't had too many beers with him, but He's intense.
He's intense, and he is a super great guy. I mean, this is going to be awesome. I'm a little nervous about next week because I'm going to get to interview him. So, pump me up. But it should be awesome. And then we're going to take a break the week after that because myself and my family are taking a little week off.
There you go.
And we don't know who's coming on the 14th of July quite yet. We'll let you know. And I'm really excited on the 21st. We usually have an appreciation event, an in-person appreciation event for our officials in Missouri Ice Hockey Officials Association. And we're moving that to a virtual event. So July 21st, and we're going to use this platform to broadcast it live. So we're going to give out some awards. We're going to show our appreciation. We're going to pat some guys on the back, which is, as we all know, very important in this job since we're a family. Any last comments there for you, Beth or John?
No, I just want to thank Johnathan so much for coming on as, a friend and just kind of a guy I've always looked up to. I love you, man, and we appreciate you.
Thanks, Andy. It's been an adventure. I love our friendship, even when you and I bet over St. Louis and Blues in the Wild, and you pay off the bet with barbecue sauce. I've given up on being a Wild fan. We were talking about this before. Andy and I made a bet years and years ago about who was going to win a particular round, and it was a food bet. And Andy sent me Pappy's barbecue sauce from St. Louis. He sent me 4 glass bottles in a box with no padding. And it ended up showing up on my doorstep in a plastic bag, reeking of vinegar and, brown sugar. And I got to use 1 bottle. Thanks, Andy. You suck at packaging.
He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. We'll teach him skills later. But
working on it.
All right, boys. Thanks a lot, John. Thanks again. Beth, you were great. And have a great summer. And hopefully we'll get back on the ice soon. Take care, fellas.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
buddy.
See ya.
Later, Andy.